Okay, so today we were going to have a look at roadmaps, both the basic roadmap that comes with Jira in the free version and the standard version, and also advanced roadmaps. Now, I'm very guilty. I haven't had much time to explore and play around and watch tutorials and that sort of stuff with these, so we're going to discover this stuff together. So I'm going to make some mistakes, no doubt, and we're going to learn some things, and people will probably teach me a thing or two, so that'll be good. We started having a look at the basic roadmaps in our last session, or a couple of sessions back, I can't remember. But they're now available with classic projects. Initially, these roadmaps were only available for next-gen Jira projects, and so they've just made them available for classic projects, which is great. They're still in beta. I haven't found any bugs yet. It looks like it's pretty good. So yeah. So let's play with that. There's not a whole lot to play with these. Like, these are sort of fairly simple in their structure. I was just having a look before where the dates are actually stored. So if I move one of these epics across, and so with moving them around, you can just sort of drag the bar. So if I move that across and the end date there is 12th of October, then that's actually updating the due date field. I think so. 12th of October is showing there. If we move it slightly left, it'll update that date. The start date, though, I'm not quite sure where that value is being set. So there might be another field somewhere, but I haven't managed to find that yet. So let's go and have a look. So it's saying it's the 9th of September. And so I've just opened the Epic up in another screen. There's our due date, and can't see it there. There might be other fields available.
So, so Paul, whilst you're doing this, just as a, I guess, a refresher comment,
yep.
Roadmaps are specifically related to epics, correct? Because an epic is an overall epic, which has lots of chapters, for want of a better word. And so what we do is we start at an epic level to develop and determine a roadmap that we can then break into, as you can see, bugs or tasks or user stories. Is that correct?
Yeah, really good point. So, so the standard Jira configuration just has 3 levels in the hierarchy. There's epic, and then the next level down is stories or tasks, or another standard issue type, and then beneath that is subtasks. And you can add different issue types at the story level or task level and subtask level as well. So we can create risks or assumptions or dependencies at that level. You can also create risks or assumptions if you wanted to as subtasks too, but there's 3 levels in the hierarchy. There's epics, standard issue types, and then sub issue types.
And the point is to always start from the top, from the epic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So this this roadmap, part of its limit, I suppose, is that it looks like it's only utilizes epics for that roadmap view, and then it's just got the stories or tasks beneath it. So I'm not sure if I can even see subtasks here. For example, ANF82, if I go and add some subtasks under that one, so create a subtask, and let's call it the first. Oops. Properly. I always have that problem.
You're not alone.
ANF 219. So if I refresh the screen again here now, and that one was under ANF 9. So ANF 9 is here. And yeah, it's not even showing subtasks. So it's limited in, I don't think this is a deliberate Atlassian thing, right? It's limited in the hierarchy that you can use in this roadmap. It's limited to one project only, so you can't have a roadmap using these standard roadmaps that combines multiple projects, and you can't sort of drill up and down. And it's really, for being free, it's really good, and it's quite helpful. And a roadmap visual has been missing out of Jira for a long time. Sorry,
right. Sorry, I was going to say, so in a paid situation, the supplementary question would be, could you develop roadmaps at, let's say, user story level? So you know that you can then break down to tasks and subtasks. Is And apologies too, because there's a lot of reading and a lot of discovery, and I haven't had a chance to really dive into it. I need to set myself like 2-3 hour blocks just to read all of this. But I just thought I'd ask a question because
no, really good question. So remember with Jira, they've got different pricing structures here now. So there's the free version, standard, which is $10 a month to up to 10 users, and then premium. And so roadmaps. So the basic roadmaps are available in the free version, and I'll just paste this in chat. Okay, so available in the free version and standard, and also in premium. So you can have the standard roadmaps across all three. Advanced roadmaps, which is what we'll have a look at next, they're only available in premium. And advanced roadmaps is what used to be called Portfolio for Jira. And that's kind of really where the roadmap visual in Jira started out. And then they made this, and it did look a bit different. Then they made this new kind of UI for roadmaps available for next-gen projects in Jira. And then they've just made it standard or available in classic projects. So this, the basic roadmaps, this view that we're looking at here now, is available in the free version, and we're looking at the free version here, and also in standard. But it is quite limited, and I think it's a deliberate thing, a clever thing for Atlassian to give people a taste of, hey, this is what roadmaps can look like, but I want more. So it's a good upsell option. So I've got my own Jira instance. It's a paid version, and it's currently on a premium trial. And so in here, we've got the concept of plans. So if we make a plan here now, and we'll just call this a Meetup plan. Now let's go through creating a plan together in this Integrity Works instance. Unfortunately, I won't be able to share this with you in the free versions, but it'll be on the video so you can watch what we do here. So click next. Now with these advanced roadmaps, we can source where we want to pull the data from. So in comparison to the basic roadmaps that we're looking at here, a basic roadmap is attached to the board that it relates to and is only available with one project. Now, board data in Jira, you can source the data via a filter, right? So you could say, I only want a subset of the project's data. I just want to see stories, right? I don't want to have any tasks in my board. And so you can sort of, I think, manipulate the data that you see in the roadmap based upon the filter that you use for creating your board. And a Jira project can have multiple boards. So you can have Kanban boards and Scrum boards, and you can have multiple Scrum boards if you wanted to, showing different sorts of data. My suggestion would be to be careful with that, because if you've got multiple Scrum boards, that means you're going to have many different sprints running in that Jira project, and you may have an item that is associated with more than one sprint. So it's going to become a bit clunky if you're sort of moving something in progress on one board and then it's updating the other board and that sort of stuff. Could work, and it could be helpful, but you probably just need to be mindful of it, because it could become confusing about what's happening with that board and the data. Okay, so in our plan for the advanced roadmap, our options here are to either choose boards that we want to include or projects, so everything for a project regardless of what board and that it appears on, or you can bring in data by filter. So if we're going to choose filter, then it would ask us to search for the filter, and there's filter for Ancient Circle. That would be the filter that's in use for the board for Ancient Circle, and then we've got a whole heap of other ones, right? If we were going to choose a project, it'll ask me what project I want to choose. If I was going to use board, then it'll ask me what boards I want to look at. So if I go with projects, and we were going to have, let's see, important bird was one. Let's see, I might bring in another one as well. We had Ancient Circle. Another one was witty food, and then I can probably go furniture. Ancient furniture was our next one, right? Estimation. You can either set your estimation to be in days, hours, or story points, and we can change this later if we want to. So let's go with story points for now. On this next one, it will ask us what releases we want to include in the board. And there's a concept with the advanced roadmaps, I think they've still got it, of having cross-project releases as well. So we can just go select all if we want to. We could say select none, or we can pick individual ones. So if we deselect all, then we could say, well, I want point 1 included, I want point 2, etc. Right? And you can pick different ones. The problem with having specifically selected releases is that you may be expecting data to appear in your plan and it might be missing. So if we just, for a start, go select all, then you'll bring in all data. And next, now we can set up teams, right? So again, this is quite far advanced, which is why it's called advanced roadmaps compared with the basic roadmap that we've got in here. But it will automatically create teams for you. So important bird, it's created a team for them, A and C team, etc., etc. And we can say that yes, they're all Scrum, and you can say what your length is going to be if you want to. And we can also say what our velocity is, and it will give a starting value for your velocity for each of the teams. The velocity can be different across teams, and sometimes so it should be with Scrum teams, because your estimation and the work that the team does will be different for each. We can also delete teams if we didn't want those teams brought in here. Okay, we go next. Here's all the data that's going to bring in. So it's got all these epics, and in here, it will show the stories and the content that's beneath. Now, I think it was ANF 9. And when I was looking at ANF, oh, okay, it was in the demo side before. I was going to say it might show me that subtask. But of course, I'm in a different Jira instance here now, so I'm not going to see the subtask between ANF 9. Subtasks will be brought across though. So let's just go done here for a second and see what that looks like. So our screen here has got quite a bit more functionality to it. We've got nothing really showing here as far as epics and dates and all the rest of it. Interestingly, over here, it gave me starting duration, or a candidate duration, I suppose, for all of these epics. Now, ANF 11, for example, I'm pretty sure that default set says no dates defined. If I move it, now it will set some dates. I still don't know where it stores that starting date in, so it's interesting. Here, it doesn't give me any candidates, but you can see that it's changing the size. Now, it's based upon location, it looks like. So if I move things across the right, it gives me 30 days. If I bring it into the left, 16 days. And that's probably because, I don't know, it's very interesting.
Maybe because March is only visually half.
There we go. That's interesting. So it didn't used to show the past. So it's only forward looking. So if I go fit, here's today. If I go with fit version, okay. So this way, this is okay. In the original version of Portfolio for Jira, you didn't used to be able to go back in time, I don't think. But here it looks like we can set, and you're right, Ignacio. So it's going from a certain point in March, the earliest date, I'm guessing, for the data. And then if we go beyond that, then it's whatever the month date is. Yeah, 31. 30.
And I guess it's limited now because it's way in the past. You can't really revisit the past. Yeah, so it's grayed out.
Looks like we can. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so it looks like we can, which is interesting. And in here we can extend the dates. I think we can do that in the basic one as well. So we can say, yep, something's going to take longer than 30 days. Orange. Now, one of the other differences, I think, in the basic roadmaps, it will write those differences to Jira straight away. So when we move a date, and we saw this before, the due date value updated straight away. Advanced roadmaps gives you the options for scenarios and also to commit your changes. So see on the right-hand side up here, we've got review changes, 1. If I expand out. Okay, and this will give you warnings as well, whereas I don't think there's any warnings on the other side. So this one will say unresolved issue after end date. The issue is still unresolved after its end date. So we set the date to be the 10th of April, and it's going, oh, hang on a second, it's not finished yet. So if I move that into the future, then I'm guessing that will go away, right? And I'll change my view, go with 1 year into the future, so that warning's now gone away. We've still got one change up here that we can review and apply. So if I wanted to make some other changes in here, so can I select this one? Okay, so it looks like I can't change the status in here, but I could say when I want something to start. So I could say the 7th, and no end date on that. It's interesting. Because it's unestimated. We can probably add in columns here. So let's see, if I wanted to bring in story points, there's a column. No, I've got story points in there, I've got 3. Not quite sure what the question marks are about. This is where a tutorial would be really good for me. Let's put a due date in here of the 16th of September. So it's set the size accordingly. And now you can see at the top here, we've got review 2 changes. So now we can look at the changes that we've got here, and it'll tell us which items have changed. They're ticked by default for having the changes being applied. The issues, it's interesting, might be issues. So epics, stories, tasks are all issues, whereas if we change to release, maybe that would have a different category. What changed? So we can see the fields that have changed and when it was last modified. So now these two, ANC15 and ANC4, if I open them back in Jira, and it's all part of Jira, but I think there's a multitude of database tables here. So it cache essentially your updated values in one and then replicate it back to the main tables when you update. So in here we've got due date. Where's our due date? Down the bottom here. No due date at the moment for ANC15. If I commit these changes, so that's done. ANC15, update it. And due date's now the 16th. Okay, so there's sort of that buffer, I suppose. You can make changes and things and look at it and decide whether or not you want to commit those changes. And if you cancel out of that updating changes screen, then you could go back in and make some more changes if you want and then recommit again later. So that's pretty cool. There's the concept of, let's see if I can figure this one.
So Paul, just to recap, we were able to go way in the past into April and March and still make changes because effectively, I'm just trying to conceptualize what that means for us to be able to set a plan which has a roadmap for something that's in the past. Is it because we're looking at past estimate and due dates that have not been completed? Is it because all of these items on the left-hand pane are still a status of other than done or closed? You're right. Here's the status quo.
That's right.
Okay, I just answered my own question. All right.
No, that's all right. Because Portfolio for Jira, the original plugin, I don't think you could go back in the past and make changes like you can here. I might be wrong based on the timeline that you were looking at under the Portfolio for Jira, but I hadn't seen it as easy as this, if it was present. And I think the reason that it's enabling us to see past data here is probably based on the releases that are being that we've included. So some of those releases, and if I go to my releases tab, they've moved the things around a little bit. So we can see here we had these ones have been released. Remember, this is all the dummy data that I imported some time back. So we've got the 18th of March. That release has got a status of released. And if I view that one in the roadmap, okay, so there's nothing in it. So I'm going to go back to all. Clear selected items. Okay. I think that's what it's why it's allowing us to do it though, is because of the releases that we've brought in. So if we removed everything that was associated with those releases, let's see if we can do that now. Can I change source data, issue sources, edit issue sources. Okay, so we've got our project still. Yep, okay, cool. So if we deselect this and only go for the releases that are in the future, 17th of September. This is part of us learning together, Ignacio. Okay, which is good. So now if I go done, we should see a lot less data in the board, I'm thinking. Drum roll. Nope. Okay, so we haven't got those releases. Hang on. This one. Its fixed version is. Okay, it doesn't have a fixed version, I don't think. Version. Yep. Okay, cool. So a lot of the stuff that was in our plan before had no fixed version associated with it. Okay. Now when I go to fit, I can't see those historical dates anymore. Okay, so that's pretty cool because I'm pretty sure on the old one that you couldn't do that. A couple of the other things I've just noticed then, when you click on the actual Epic link here, it'll automatically just open it in a new tab for you straight off. That's pretty cool. I don't think it used to do that in the old Portfolio plugin either. So that's pretty good. Now, if we go to configuration, again, comparing advanced roadmaps with basic ones, there's really no config for the basic ones, right? But in the new one, in the advanced roadmaps, we can do things like changing our estimate. So I remember when we were picking our data and setting up the plan, we said we were going to go with story points, and you can change that afterwards if you want to be days or hours. Dates, okay, so we've got a custom field called start date. Now, let's just experiment here for a minute. So remember in the basic roadmap, I wasn't sure where it was storing this, this field, right? I want to see which screen we're using. Okay, I'm going to go off on a bit of a tangent here for a minute. At the moment, I can't see the start date field in my list of screen fields that are available on the screen on the right-hand side here. So I'm going to go into project settings for Ancient Furniture. And I'm going to see what screen it's using. So I'm in project settings now looking at screens, and it's using the default screen. So I'm going to see if I can add the start date field. I'm pretty sure it's not in here now. Okay, so it's not in there now. Let's see if we can add the start date. Start date, there we go. And I'm going to move that up to wherever due date is. Due date's probably at the top somewhere. There we go. We'll put it just above due date. Now, when we're configuring a screen like this, remember we don't have to save the screen. Those changes are saved automatically. But on the board, when we're configuring a screen, I'm just going to refresh here, you do have to save those changes. So if I change my configuration here, and I don't have any hidden fields, so that's good. Due date. Okay, so I've got due date has come down here, hide when empty, and start date is up above. So I'm going to put due date to be just under start date and scroll down to save my changes. Now, if I go back to my project, I go to my roadmap, and this one here where we've moved it, 28th of September. Let's see. Start date and due date. Okay, cool. So they've got a custom field now, and The reason that I'm saying it's a custom field is because they've got an ID there for the field, whereas due date is an out-of-the-box built-in field, so that they're not referencing any ID there. But we could pick a different field if we wanted to. So target end and target start, I think they are Jira fields. Scheduled date, I think that could be one that came across when I imported the data, and job date applied. That might be one of the ones that came with mock data as well. So when you're configuring this plan in advanced roadmaps, sorry, not portfolio, yeah, that's pretty cool. You can either use Jira's fields that it supplies for you, or you could use a different one. So you can create your own custom field and use that for your start date if you wanted to. End date, same sort of thing. I'm guessing if instead of using start date, if I use scheduled date, then start date would become available over here, which doesn't make any sense logically using a start date for an end date, but you've got the flexibility if you want to. So that's pretty cool. There's an option here for sprint dates. Use the sprint dates when issues don't have start and end dates, so you can default to whatever sprint the item is in, which is pretty good. Dependencies, configure how to schedule dependent issues in the plan, either sequential or concurrent, so you can say something that has a dependency on something else can't begin until the previous one is finished, or allow them to work in parallel. So these sort of constraints around dependencies are not present in the basic roadmap. So you can't get, it'll highlight it and say, well, hang on a second,
Yeah.
you've got something that's, you know, the dates overlap, but I don't think it's going to enforce it for you. Oh, okay. Whereas, okay, and you can change priority that way too. That's pretty good. Whereas in this plan, if you, it used to use what it called a hungry scheduler, I think was the algorithm. If you hadn't put constraints in, such as this thing must start on this date, or it's got to finish on that date, or it must be in this sprint, if you hadn't set those values, then it would automatically schedule the work for you. So if you said this thing is dependent upon this thing, then it would swap them around and do that planning for you. And there's capacity calculators and all sorts of things in here too. I just looked at the clock before. I thought, oh, we're at time, but no, we've got half an hour left. So good. Okay, so again, what we're looking at here is the configuration for our advanced roadmap plan. We've just been through the scheduling side. The source data, so we just played with this before. We could, if we wanted to modify or replace the data that we were using for our plan, remember we could choose from boards or filters or projects. If I wanted to change it now, I could. So if I had brought in all the data from a project and I wanted to swap that over to a filter that just used a subset or something, I could do that. So that's pretty cool. Completed issues, choose how long any completed issues in Jira will remain in your plan. So that's good. So it's sort of got a self-cleanup function, which is pretty cool. Custom fields. So scheduled dates is a custom field. And manage your custom fields in Jira. So you can start using these in your plan. So that takes me to, I don't think we've played around with custom fields much yet in Jira in our meetups, but you can create custom fields here. So it's got a link to it. And if I add a custom field, okay, that will enable me to select from one of the existing custom fields that I've already got set in Jira. So if I wanted to bring in, I don't know, one of these ones that's from the mock data, then it'll let me bring that in. So it's pretty cool. And so I think that's to include or exclude custom fields if you wanted to. You can configure permissions for the plan. So separate to Jira permissions, where you might have, you know, administrators and all the rest of it, you can also more discreetly administer permissions for the actual plan itself. So we can say who can edit the plan. So all advanced roadmap users are restricted, and we can say who can view it. And if I go into my configuration, actually it's apps I need. Go into configuring apps. When you're in your system configuration under apps, there's advanced roadmaps further configuration here. So the configuration that we're looking at on this screen here around plan access and everything, that's specifically for just that plan that we were looking at, the Meetup plan. The system configuration that we were just in this screen over here, where we went into the little gear icon and down to apps, and under the advanced roadmap subsection, this would apply to all plans, right? So in here, we can sort of set up a permission and say which Jira groups we want to have in it. So advanced roadmaps administrator, user, viewer, there's a labs access for early access to different functionality, shared team management. So if we wanted to be able to share teams across different plans, then we can configure that as well. And you can say who is it that can administer or control those shared teams. The other things of interest in here are the hierarchy of issue types. So with our basic Jira, so the free version and the standard version, which don't have advanced roadmaps, there isn't the ability to add more layers to the hierarchy of issue types. But you can see here, I've added initiative. So I've got epics. That's the standard one that we were seeing before on the basic roadmap here. But I've created initiative to sit above that. You could go as deep as you want. It's not recommended to go too deep because things become unwieldy, and usually you can control it just with one above epics. But if you have need to, then you can add more levels in. And it says here, changes to hierarchy configuration will apply to all existing plans. So if I wanted to create another level, and I wanted to say, let's say we've got a theme, and I could pick a Jira type that maps to that level name. I don't think I've got a theme. Nope, let's say it's toolkit development, for example. Okay. Then I can save those changes and I can, let's see, I should be able to move that down. Let's save my changes. Now I can move it down after the changes have been saved. So if I wanted to have, okay, so I can't put it in between epic story and subtask. It's interesting. So this hierarchy here, epic story and subtask, I can't insert anything between those. I guess that would break other things within Jira. But if I wanted to insert it in between epic and initiative, then I could do that. So they're my options. Okay. And I'm going to reset that.
So Paul, whilst you're configuring apps, you're configuring maps within the context of the plan, right? The roadmap, not outside of it. Because I know you went to system config and you chose apps, but that is only within the context of how you're going to use apps in the roadmap. Is that correct?
So this one, okay, so the really good question. So the little gear icon here, when I go into apps configuration, that is apps across all of Jira, so all of my Jira instance. And advanced roadmaps is one app that I've got installed. I could add in more apps if I wanted to, and I would configure them here as well.
Right. I had just missed the notion or the concept that roadmaps are a type of app, a category of app.
Yeah. So advanced, okay. Yeah, good call. So actually, it's really weird that they configure it that way. It used to be that Portfolio for Jira was a plugin that you would add in and you would pay for Portfolio for Jira in its own right. And it made sense that that was then configured as an app. But now that it's actually standard functionality in Jira Premium, it's odd that they've got it as an app that you configure. It should be its own system configuration sort of thing elsewhere. So I guess that's just kind of a leftover from how it used to be built, which is a bit interesting. Now I'm just going to see if we can find a free, let's say if we had Lucid Charts and we wanted to add that app in. And again, this is just in my demo instance. You can do this in the free instance though. If you want to play with adding free apps in, go for it. Okay, so we're adding that. And so Lucid Chart, okay, so if I went to configure that, Yeah. So we can see now we've got advanced roadmaps as one app or plugin, and the Lucid Chart add-on is another one that I can configure. So when I go to the little gear icon and apps to configure it, now I've got two choices. There's advanced roadmaps or Lucid Chart. So all the apps that you install would be configured under that app section. Okay, so good question. So the dependencies configuration here. Again, this is configuring advanced roadmaps, but it will affect all plans. Right? So it's system-wide configuration for advanced roadmaps. So if I wanted to say for the dependency type of blocks, if A blocks B, then A is scheduled before B, and you could swap it. I'm not sure why you would want to. So that would then be, if A blocks B, then B is scheduled before A, which is sort of counterintuitive. So I'm going to leave that. But you can have other dependency types as well. So it could be dependency. If A depends upon B, then A is scheduled before B. So we can have a range of different linking types, which are factored in when advanced roadmaps is automatically scheduling our work. So it could consider blocking, and it could consider dependencies. And in theory, you could add, duplicates, mitigates, or relates as well. So any of your existing link types you can configure as a dependency and tell Jira how you want advanced roadmaps to treat those. So I'm just going to remove that one. Okay. All right. So that was a bit of a sidetrack into permissions, and we were just talking about setting up system-wide permissions in advanced roadmaps that you can then per plan say, well, for advanced roadmap users, I want them to be able to edit the plan, for example. There's a couple of other configuration options here. And so we've got scenarios. Now, if we enable scenarios, let's say our first one is our initial scenario, and we're going to call that red. And if I go back to the plan now, we've got a new option here, initial scenario. So I could, if I was trying to plan something out and I thought, okay, I've got my 4 teams. I want to see how long it's going to take to complete all of our work with those 4 teams. Then you could create a scenario based on that. And you might say, okay, I want to see what it's going to look like if we add more resources to that. What's going to happen to our capacity, and is it going to affect our timelines much, or is it still going to be about the same because of dependencies and other constraints? So you can create new scenarios. And so I could either create a blank one, or I can say, I've got my baseline, which is my initial scenario, and I'm going to call this one themes or capacity change, and you can pick a color for it. And I can either create from a blank scenario or a copy of initial. Okay, and then I can jump between the two. So if I said capacity change, for example, now we haven't got a lot of data in here, so it's not making a whole lot of sense at the moment. But if let's see, if I had another release, I'm going to go to releases, and I'm going to create a release. I'm going to call this our first release. And okay, so I can either link it to a release, or I can just create one. So first release. Now I'm going to review my changes. Now the category that we've got up here is a cross-project release instead of an issue. Remember that category that we were looking at before?
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to write that back to Jira. And now that'll be interesting to see. If I go to Ancient Circle now, whether I have a corresponding release there. So first release, I'll go to Ancient Circle and I'll go to releases. I don't. But if I create first release, in Portfolio for Jira, for advanced roadmaps, it used to create releases in the associated projects. It's interesting that it doesn't do that now. So now if I go back to advanced roadmaps and I configure ancient circle. What was it I was looking at here? Ancient circle. It's interesting. Let's refresh this. First release. Okay. So I can add that one. All right. So now it's all synced up. Review my change, which will be associating that release. Okay. Now if I go back to my roadmap, I should see. I don't think I've said that. Okay. So I'm still sort of learning here as well. Okay, so I've got no start date and no release date. If I edit this, and actually there's another option there to align dates. That's interesting. All start dates, leave as is. I'm going to make that as early as possible. All release dates after all issues are completed. Set the dates. Okay. So it's only saved in our plan. We've got a little pop-up there. Review this change and then save it in Jira. So I'm just going to apply that. And okay, so now we've got some issues assigned to that release there. Nothing assigned to our first release. I'll go back to my roadmap and settings. Okay, now I'm starting to learn. Okay, delving into new territory. So under our view settings for this roadmap, let's see what we've got here. We can group by project or release if we wanted to. Let's go with release for now. So we've got work assigned to 1.4, and we've got a whole heap of work that's unassigned, not assigned to a release at all. Let's see if we can add in our release. And for some of these, okay, let's associate these with first release now. And these are WIF. The first one's for A and C. Okay, we've got no more epics. Now I can scroll down, A and C. Now, you can see that I'm sort of scrolling around in here trying to find things. We can filter if we wanted to. So if we want to just be able to see particular projects, we can just go A and C. That will filter what we see in this plan. So I'm going to assign that one to first release as well. This is A and C. I'm going to put that one in first release. So now if I expand out first release, we can see these bits. And let's just set some dates here for our epics. Okay, so you can see that it's setting some dates here. And okay, we can set up a dependency in this way. So I can say that ANC2 is blocked by ANC4. So let's see what happens here. ANC4. Tick in. Okay, so then I get this blocked by statuses. Yeah, okay. Filtered by dependencies. Okay. Right, so now it's highlighting the dependencies for me. Now, if I review my changes and save, I should be able to get it to auto schedule, okay? So if I go auto schedule, and it used to be a calculate button. So when I auto schedule, this will automatically set dates, sprints, releases, and teams for all estimated issues in this plan. Issue rank, team velocity, and dependencies are some of the factors used to determine the resulting schedule, okay? Overriding issues values. So you can choose to overwrite fields that have existing values or to set values only if the fields are empty. So we can say sprints, releases, and teams. We'll preview the results. Okay, so now I've got all sorts of colors and stripes going on. Okay, so we're previewing 27 and 142 auto-scheduled issues. And that, when it's saying issues here, I don't think it's meaning problems. I think it's meaning
tickets, Jira tickets.
tickets. Yeah. By accepting your plan will be updated with these changes. You'll still need to review and save all your changes in your plan to Jira. Okay, so we'll accept the changes. And review the changes. Yep, great. Save. So you can see that Advanced Roadmaps, just while it's doing that, has got a ton more functionality than the basic ones. The basic ones are good for a visual and sharing information with teams. But this one you can use for far more complex project management.
Yeah, and basics are good for us to learn as a stepping stone, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, very much.
Yeah. One thing I was going to say, you know how you were going to demonstrate the scenarios? That's what you were building to, right? So you had the blue one, which is change scenario, versus the red one, which is scenario 1, I think you called it. So
Yep.
so what you do, you've just built a scenario, and then you can then flick to the other scenario and then compare the results. Is that where you're heading?
Yeah, that's right. So I'll see how that works. That was my intention. So I'm hoping that by committing these changes back to Jira, it's not removing my scenarios. But I think probably if I jump back to the other scenario and made changes, that would override all the changes that I made in Jira if I committed them. Good question, though. And that's part where I need to learn a bit more about, especially with the new version, because it's all changed a little bit.
Because my thinking, and it could be wrong, but if we've got scenarios, is like almost like saying, what if analysis, so that you're saying, okay, one scenario is got a certain amount of parameters and dependencies and dates and constraints.
Yep.
You then create a second scenario, which is a separate commit on the database, right? So you have links to the same issues, but with different variables set, and you then toggle from one to the other, correct?
Yeah, that's right. And I'm not quite sure at what point we lock in from one to the other. So let's have a look at this. So if I go to ANC2, for example, now it's interesting that it hasn't moved that to be after. So it's saying here, ANC2 is blocked by ANC4. Okay, so it's making sure that ANC4 is finished before ANC2 needs to finish. And I think it's stretched out ANC2 because it's 118 days. So if I jump back now to our initial scenario, you should see, it's interesting. Okay, because I've committed those changes, then it's brought the two scenarios in sync. So I'm pretty sure ANC2 and 4, it looks exactly the same. It's a capacity change one. So your scenarios are only good or helpful or effective, I suppose, until the point where you submit or commit your changes back to Jira. So it's all in the, you're right, it's must be stored in different or cached in different areas of Jira's database while you've got the scenarios in place. But once you commit the changes, then it all syncs back to the main Jira tables, I think, by the look of that. So yeah, so that'd be something to be mindful of. But if we go to Teams now, so if we're under capacity change, and I said that the Ancient Circle team, instead of being 30 points, let's make it 200. And we review our changes. Now, I can either apply those or I can go back to my roadmap and I could auto schedule. So preview our results. So if we accept those changes, but I don't commit them yet. So we'll be applying changes to the plan. Now, if I jump back into an initial scenario, the dates may not have changed. So we've probably got some more work to do as far as story points and everything that's involved here. And hierarchy. Okay, so go to story. Ah, right. Okay. So all of these stories are not yet assigned to a release. So if I select all and I change it to first release, I can apply actions. Release, okay. First release, apply. All right. You can see that it's also very easy to sort of become lost in.
Yeah, yeah.
Fair bit to it.
Question. So, advanced roadmaps, or let's call them roadmaps, are apps, but I see that apps are one category of element. I said within plans. Does that mean that plans are also apps? So see on the top left-hand corner, roadmap, teams, releases is all under Meetup plan, and you've got the geared wheel that allows you to configure those. Because the roadmap is an app, does that mean that the plan is also treated as an app?
Okay, so think of the roadmap as a plugin that you can use within, or a feature of Jira. Okay, can you still hear me? My internet, I've just got a warning, so it's unstable.
I know, yeah, just dropped in and out what you said. Could you repeat it?
Yeah, sure. So think of a roadmap as a plugin, or advanced roadmaps in Jira as a plugin, and the actual roadmap that we're looking at here is an instance or a set of data that is using that plugin.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And it does get very confusing because there's configuration here of the plan itself, and then there's settings over on the right-hand side here. This used to be more confusing in Portfolio for Jira before they brought out advanced roadmaps, and there were sort of gear icons everywhere, and it was really confusing for people.
So when you had before on the left-hand pane, you were configuring permissions and screens for plan. Is it there, that geared map, that geared wheel? If you click on that.
Yeah, so if I go configure here.
Got it. Yep, there it is. Yep, that was it.
So this, good question. So this is configuring the actual plan itself and what you can do with the plan. So permissions for this plan. So if I had two plans, if I had a meetup one and I had a work one, and I changed the permissions in here, it wouldn't change the permissions for the work one.
And again, the plans consist of roadmaps and your team structure and your releases. Yeah. Releases, right.
Yeah, good point. So that's a really good way to describe it. So our plan, which is our set of data, has, yes, three different constituent parts, I guess. The actual roadmap itself, you're right, which is all the scheduling side of it, and who's going to do the work, and when we're going to release it, or how we're going to control it. Yeah, so it's a really good way to describe it.
It's really powerful. Yeah,
it is. There's a lot to it, but yeah, I'd encourage you to. I don't think I can do a free upgrade. Just thinking about the projects that I've got the free instances, I could probably do like a 30-day trial or something like that. But this might be one that would be good to now set up your own Jira instance if you wanted to, and I can help you with setting that up, and maybe organise the 30-day trial. I think with Jira Premium for a single user, it's $14 per month for that license, and then for each user that you add, it's another $14. So it's not super cheap, but if you wanted to have a play around with roadmaps for a couple of months or something, it won't cost a whole lot. And then if it's self-education, I'm no accountant, but you might be able to claim it on your tax. So all right. So we're almost at time. I know once again that was there was a lot to take in that session. Hopefully that's given a bit of a contrasted view between basic roadmaps and advanced roadmaps. I'm seriously thinking about using advanced roadmaps for my role if I can. I think that'll make work a lot easier, certainly across lots of different projects with cross-team dependencies and that sort of thing. So looks like it's pretty good. Any questions before we wrap up? No, all good. No worries. As always, yeah, please feel free to chat on Slack. If you want me to post any screenshots or try out different things and post that back in the Slack channel or whatever, let me know. I'm very happy to do that. Time permitting, I'll just do it after hours. But other than that,
fantastic. Thank you, Paul.
no worries. Thanks heaps for coming along.
No worries.
Great to have you with us.
Thank you.
And,
Thanks, Kudzi, for organizing the announcement.
Okay, see ya.
Yeah, good stuff. No worries.
Take
All
care.
right. Thanks,
Okay.
guys.
Bye
Okay.
for now.
Bye.